Hello everyone, this is Horn here with some notes on chapter 37. The focus is on plant nutrition and what mechanisms do plants use to get the daily nutrients they need in order to maintain homeostasis. We're going to start off talking about nutrients that a plant needs. Plants can get nutrients from the water, soil that they're in, air that surrounds them. All of those things contribute to the growth of the plant. The three nutrients that are the most abundant are oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. They are considered essential nutrients. The carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, those elements will make up carbohydrates, and glucose is the carbohydrate that's made during photosynthesis. Carbohydrates, an example is cellulose, and cellulose is a molecule that makes up the cell walls of plants. Other essential nutrients that are needed for a plant to grow properly, phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen, those are things that it is common for them to be lacking in the soil. Those deficiencies can result in improper growth of a plant or discoloring of leaves. And here's an example of what a healthy leaf would look like, and then what it would look like if it were deficient in one of those nutrients. All of these problems are easy to fix. It does not mean that the plant is going to die. It does need to be, fertilizer will have to be added to the soil in certain amounts. Most fertilizers have phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen in them in different percentages, and you have to add the appropriate amount for the need of your soil. This chart shows all of the nutrients that are necessary for a plant, and it breaks it into two groups. There are the macronutrients and the micronutrients. The macronutrients are nutrients that are required in very large amounts to maintain plant homeostasis. The micronutrients, they are needed, but in really tiny amounts. A term that you might not be familiar with is hydroponic culture. And all of the information in this data table, we have that information because of a process called hydroponic culture. This is when plants are grown in mineral solutions as opposed to soil. And they have done this in order to figure out what are the essential nutrients that are needed for plants. And by growing them in mineral solutions, that's how a chart like this was devised. When I say essential nutrients, I'm talking about a requirement for a plant that enables a plant to complete its life cycle and bring it to produce another generation. Here's a picture of what it might look like if it were grown in a mineral solution. The plant on the left has a solution in the beaker that has all minerals in it, whereas the beaker on the right is lacking potassium, and it's very obvious that the growth of the plant is not as it would be if it had all of those essential macronutrients. The purpose of soil. The purpose of soil for plants is this is where the water and dissolved minerals are. They are pooling in the air pockets of the topsoil specifically. I'm going to show you just a picture. I'll come back to this, but here's a picture of the different layers of soil. Topsoil would be horizon A. Notice this picture is very dark. There's a lot of organic material here. The topsoil is typically where any decaying matter is. That's where fertilizer is. A loamy topsoil is very fertile. It's made up of sand, silt, and clay. Loamy topsoil consists of very small particles, and those small particles help it to retain water and minerals, but there are also some large spaces in there and some large pockets of space which enable water to be in those spaces, but it also allows a lot of diffusion of oxygen into the roots of the plant. The properties of soil can be altered by adding things to the mix. So if you would add peat moss or compost material, manure, or sand, all of those things would change the composition of your soil, making it a more fertile, more aerated environment for the growth of plants. Nitrogen is a vital nutrient to the growth of plants because the plant is going to use nitrogen to make all things related to proteins. Proteins are the organic molecule that has nitrogen in them. So a plant would use it to make more proteins or to make hormones, to make enzymes, to make nucleic acids that would make up DNA and RNA. The picture at the bottom of the page, I've gone through and numbered this, steps 1 through 6. So make sure you get the numbers on your diagram. And then the numbers go with 6 steps to this process. And this whole process in that picture is showing you the nitrogen cycle. It starts off with a type of bacteria that we call nitrogen-fixing bacteria. The process is called nitrogen fixation, and it takes atmospheric nitrogen and converts it to NH3, which is ammonia. We also have a different kind of bacteria that are in the soil called ammonifying bacteria, and these bacteria will release ammonia by breaking down proteins. Now, through step 1 and step 2, there are 2 different ways, but both coming up with ammonia. That ammonia will then pick up an additional hydrogen from the soil to make ammonium, NH4. That ammonium is then converted to a nitrate by nitrifying bacteria, and this is called nitrification. Nitrification allows this nitrate to then be absorbed and used by the roots. All of these steps happened so that the roots can absorb the nitrogen. Plant cannot use atmospheric nitrogen. It can't use ammonia. It can't use ammonium. It has to get it into the right form so that it can be absorbed by the roots. The last step is that there is another type of bacteria in the soil called denitrifying bacteria, and those bacteria will actually take the nitrate and convert it back into atmospheric nitrogen. There are mutualistic relationships in the world of plants when you compare plants to bacteria or plants to fungus. And a mutualistic relationship is one where both of those organisms benefit. The one that I want to describe here is a relationship between a plant and a fungus. Now the plant looks like it gets off pretty easy because it's simply providing the fungus with one thing. It's providing them with a supply of sugar. The fungus, on the other hand, does a list of things to help the plant out. The fungus, because it's growing on the roots of the plant, is actually increasing the surface area and allowing for more uptake of water to the plant roots. It also supplies phosphates and other minerals to the roots. It does secrete a growth factor which will stimulate the host's roots to grow. This is a benefit because when the roots grow, they can access more water, they can get further down in the soil, and it allows them to absorb more. The fungus will also secrete an antibiotic, which just happens to protect the plant from any pathogens that might be in the soil. And the last slide are about different types of plants that are not so common, not so familiar. The one group are a group called epiphytes, and epiphytes are plants that grow on other plants. They don't harm them, so that would be considered a commensalistic relationship, whereas one benefits and one is not harmed. The one that is growing on the other plant, so the epiphyte, it actually gets its water and its minerals from any rain. Good examples of an epiphyte are orchids, Spanish moss, if you've ever been down south, Florida, Carolinas. There's lots of trees down there that have this Spanish moss just hanging out of these other trees. Then we have some parasitic plants. These are plants that will absorb water, minerals, and sugar straight from the host plant. These parasitic plants grow roots that tap into the host. Mistletoe is actually an example of a parasitic plant. And our last group of plants are carnivores. Our carnivorous plants do carry on photosynthesis, but they supplement their diet with insects to provide them more nitrogen. And we've already talked about what nitrogen is necessary for. These carnivorous plants are typically found in acidic environments. Pitcher plant is a good example of one. I have a photo of that here on the right, and a Venus flytrap over here on the left. So that gives us information for chapter 37, and I hope this helps.